Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. The talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. On the line with us today, we have Daphne Roberts. We'll be discussing her new book, Storms, Life Crisis Survival Guide, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Daphne was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business, UR Link Publishing. If you have a book that you'd like moved, move it through UR Link. You can find them at urlinkpublishing.com. And guys, I am so beyond excited to have Daphne here on the line with us today because, the book that we're going to be discussing, the book that she is bringing to our People of Distinction table is remarkable in the sense that it's so applicable to what we are going through today as a human family. Let's be honest, guys. Listen, we're all experiencing it, okay? It's not something that we're dealing with here in the States. It's something that we're dealing with globally with this pandemic, with the coronavirus. And, we're all going through a bit of a life crisis at the moment. And, of course, there's variations into the severity of it based upon each individual. But I think one thing that we can all say and all agree to is that we're definitely all feeling it to a certain extent. And what is remarkable and wonderful about the underlying theme of this book is really the main message to be pulled from it. It's a message about hope. It's a message about, regardless of the storms you are facing and currently going through in your life or have just passed, there's hope at the end of the tunnel. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. And Daphne has put together a remarkable story that she's going to share with our People of Distinction audience here today about that message of hope and how she's come to establish that and put that into form for us. So without further ado, I have Daphne here on the line. Daphne, thank you so much for being a guest here on People of Distinction. How are you today?
We're doing very well. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Absolutely. Listen, we are so excited to have you here. So the feeling is definitely mutual. Daphne, let's just jump right in because I'm sure my People of Distinction audience is a little tired of hearing me speak by this point. So let's jump right in for them. Tell us about the book, Storms, Life Crisis Survival Guide. Give us a brief synopsis.
Yes, it's a book that will take you through all phases of any crisis or what I call a storm in your life. It explains why people experience storms. Then it goes into a description of how to prepare for the storm, and then a description of what to do if you're in the middle of a storm, some steps to take to help carry you successfully through the storm. Then it goes into what you do after the storm. And when you get on the other side of the storm, just help you step by step. Because let's face it, there's only three kinds of people in the world today: those who have just been through a storm, those who are in the storm, or those who are headed toward one.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely, of course. If it hasn't happened to you yet, be prepared. Right? Hunker down because it's about to happen. And that's what's beautiful about that is it's such a universal message. Regardless of whatever type of background you come from, you can't escape adversity, right? Or, as you so eloquently put, storms. You can't escape the storm. It's going to happen. And,
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, into each life a little rain must fall.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. And, the next question, which, I can assume, I think where the title is developed and what it's hinting towards, but what happens when you assume, Daphne. So we don't like to do that here at People of Distinction. Since we have you on the line, please talk to us. It's such an intriguing title for the book. Explain to our listening audience really how that developed creatively for you and where that title came from.
Okay. Well, I live in the South, in Louisiana, in the South, and we experience a lot of storms. Historically, we've had several major hurricanes, and in the process of preparing for a hurricane and getting through it, and afterwards, I found a correlation between the physical storm that you would face, the real storm, and then a life crisis storm. And so I continuously compared the two in the book, and that's where I arrived at the title. Storms, because a crisis that you go through in your life, a personal crisis, is very similar to the actual geological. It's similar to a rainstorm or a hurricane that you might go through in the state.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, being a New England boy myself, I mean, we've dealt with our fair share of hurricanes, so I definitely can understand where you're coming from and how you're able to make that correlation. And, it's such a beautiful connection that you've been able to put together that way, and so applicable, right, to the underlying theme of the book that way. So thank you very much for developing that in that way. Now, the next question that I really would love to go into, Daphne, is talk to us about some of the inspiration behind the book that really helped you create the narrative.
Well, some of the inspiration was from my own life. I've lived long enough that I have personally gone through several life crises, different, personal things. And I've watched other people go through crises and how that they navigated through those crises, and some successfully and some unsuccessfully. But one of the things I try to instill into my children is that you don't have the best teacher. Experience is the best teacher, but you don't have to experience it all yourself. You don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. You can watch someone else make mistakes and learn from that. And so I by using my personal experience and experience of others that I observed through the years, I tried to collect a lot of information to share with others to help maybe prevent someone from falling when they could stand up.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderfully put. One thing that I definitely was able to connect to with what you just said was learning from other people's mistakes. And, that's something that I think from a very early age, I have older brothers. I come from a very big family, and I have older brothers. And, I was always one to to kind of learn from their mistakes that way, so I didn't have to walk in the same, path sometimes. And of course, I've still, we're all human, right? So I still had my own mishaps and missteps that way. But, I tried to learn as much as humanly possible, not only, of course, from their mistakes, but also from their positive choices and things that way as well. So really offering that reflection or seeing, what could be gained from that, so it wasn't taken in vain and it wasn't something that just went to waste, allowing yourself to learn from others, from other decisions and other mistakes that way can, of course, shed so much light on the path in which you're walking. So wonderfully put, Daphne. Guys, again, we're here on the line with Daphne Roberts discussing her book Storms, Life Crisis Survival Guide, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Daphne, so we've learned about the inspiration pulled from your own life that way. Why did you feel that this was a book? I mean, was this something that you came to and instantly from the very beginning, the moment that spark of creativity came to fruition in your mind, was this something that you knew had to be developed into a book and into a narrative, or why did you feel this book needed to be written?
Well, it was actually developed over a period of years as I reflected upon the different phases of the storm or life crisis. And as I've gotten older, I just felt a compulsion to try to leave some of my knowledge that I've gained through the School of Hard Knocks behind, so that others could maybe benefit from some of the pain and suffering that I had to go through, that may keep them from falling into a ditch, so to speak. And I just wanted to leave something and try to help others. That's the main issue, was to leave something that could help others get through their crises successfully.
Wonderful. Yeah, what I always find fascinating being an artist myself and coming from an artistic background that I come from, I always find it fascinating to know what triggers that creative inspiration in others, right? And how that develops. And, hearing you talk, and I always believe that, listen, whether we're talking about a fictional narrative, a self-help narrative, or, anything of the like, always having it grounded and steeped in some kind of realistic foundation that way, I think is always the best way to go. And all the books that I've ever read, the ones that I've always kind of been geared more towards and leaned more towards, always have that relatability that way. So you're hearing you talk about how, this was something that was developed from your own experience and something that you felt would really be beneficial to others, is profound. In so many ways that way, and respectable, really, because, a lot of times I think it's hard for people to write about their own experiences and their own mistakes and their shortcomings that they've experienced that way. It's kind of really putting that mirror up in front of you, and it's sometimes hard to look at, and we truly respect that, that you've been able to kind of take that road and put that into this book for us and for our listening audience here. Thank you, Daphne.
Yes.
Now, next question that we have, and doing the research for the book, there's kind of a religious undertone for the book. Is that correct?
Yes, it's faith-based, basically, based on an experience in the New Testament found in Acts chapter 28. When the Apostle Paul was going through a storm. I correlate that experience when he went through the storm there to the physical storms that we go through, our personal crisis, as well as a hurricane-type storm that we prepare for in Louisiana.
Wonderful. Now, because it is steeped in, again, some faith. Now, of course, in all the questions that we've touched upon so far in this interview, this is the first time that it's really been brought out. So I don't know to what extent the religious undertone plays in the book, but, a natural question that would arise, of course, for anybody looking and doing some research on it and then knowing that that has an undertone there, would you say that this is a book that is specifically geared for audience members of faith or readers of faith that way, or is it something that's applicable to everyone?
I feel like it would be applicable to everyone. It just gives you simple steps to help you prepare for storm and to navigate through the storm. Let me just share a couple of the steps that are recommended to help you get through a storm.
Yes, please.
One of the first steps is to admit you're in a storm. You can't get help if you don't admit you're in a storm. In the South,
absolutely, when
you ask someone, how are you doing, they always say, well, okay. Well, you have to ask them again, because in the South, we don't tell people that we're not okay. And so to get help, you need to admit you're in a storm. And some of the other things is suggestions to get through a storm is to lighten your load, get rid of anything unnecessary that you don't have to do, and, stay with the boat. And feed yourself. Make sure you keep up your energy and feed yourself, and don't let your immune system get knocked down. So it's practical steps to help anyone to navigate through a personal crisis.
Fantastic. Wonderfully put. And what I love about that and the tips, of course, that you've just given. And obviously, guys, there's many more tips in the book. We don't want to give it all away. But what's fantastic about the tips that you just gave is, you mentioned it's practical, right? And regardless of your background, again, whether you consider yourself to be a religious person, a spiritual person, an atheist, whatever the case may be, you can't avoid adversity that life is going to throw in your path, right? And
that's correct.
Having this book with such practical tips that you're able to pull from in that way is really the profound message here, because again, it's going to be applicable to everyone that way. So Daphne, thank you so much. It was wonderful. Now, last question, and of course I know we're talking about so many things, and there's hills and there's valleys and there's so many poignant messages here that we've already discussed, and I'm sure there are more in the book to be discovered. If there's one message that you really want to try to narrow down this interview, or one message that our People of Distinction audience has to be able to know about storms, what would you want that message to be?
Well, the purpose is to give people hope, no matter what stage of life you find yourself in, or no matter what stage of crisis you find yourself in. There's always hope. There's always a way to get through and get on the other side successfully.
Beautiful. Absolutely. And guys, I mean, listen, what more can we say about this book? And, listen, guys, again, on the line, Daphne Roberts, talking about Storm's Life Crisis Survival Guide, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Not just there, though, guys. You can also go directly to her personal website, edaphnerobertsbooks.com. And you'll be able to find more information about her, more information about the book. Listen, as I go into my closing reflection now, I mean, this was such an amazing interview. And I love having interviews this way of such profound messages because of the fact that there's so much to pull from it. And given this current time, as I started the interview talking about, this is something that's applicable, something that we all need in our lives today. If you're not currently going through a storm, brace yourself. I personally feel, not to be bleak, but I personally feel, I think we're still at the forefront of this whole coronavirus pandemic. We're moving through steadily, and things are starting to kind of normalize to a certain extent, but I think we still have a long way to go before we get back to life as we used to know it, if that is even something that is ever possible again. So the majority of us are currently in the thick of the storm. We're in the eye of the storm right now. But what I love about this book and the message behind it is that there's always a silver lining. One quote that continues to ring in my mind, and I'm gonna butcher it now, so I apologize. But it's a quote that I heard years ago, and it's always darkest before the day. And I think that is such a powerful message that correlates with this book here, because there's always going to be a storm, but after the storm, there's going to be sunshine again, right? The storm doesn't last forever. And you just have to try as much as humanly possible to waver that storm, to continue to push through, hold down that fort, either through faith or whatever means that you choose to do it in. We're going to get past it. There's going to be a positive light, again, that shines through. And it's just up to us to hold down strong and continue to push through. And that's the message that Daphne has brought to our table today for our People of Distinction audience. And, I can't thank you enough, Daphne. I mean, this has been absolutely fantastic, and we truly appreciate you bringing that to our table. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me on your show.